Imagine this. A young woman, an orca trainer, just completely passionate about these incredible animals, and then her life ends tragically, killed by the very whale she loved. It's a gut-wrenching image.
Wow.
And it really points to some shocking truths, ones often hidden beneath the surface glamour of marine parks. So today, we're doing a deep dive into this complex and often hidden world of humans and orcas interacting in captivity. Our mission here is really to give you a shortcut, to help you grasp the key insights from this chilling story, the story of Lucia Delgado and the Orca Reiko. We'll pull out the surprising facts, connect the dots, so you walk away with a solid, well-rounded view, without feeling buried in information. Now, our main source for this is a really compelling narrative called Fatal Encounter, Orca trainer Lucia Delgado's tragic end. It lays out this whole story of trust, ambition, and ultimately this unavoidable clash between human desire and, well, wild nature. Okay, so let's unpack this.
Yeah, and what's so fascinating, I think, about this source material is how starkly it shows that tension, the tension between someone's deeply personal dream, right, and then the often unseen pressures and realities that are just built into these captive environments. It really makes you question, our assumptions about these majestic creatures in settings like that.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
So to really get the full picture of this tragedy, we kind of have to start with Lucia's dream. She was born in Valencia, Spain, and apparently ever since she was a kid, her focus was just orcas. Not just, marine life generally, but specifically these giants.
It was clearly this undeniable passion, and she pursued it hard, studied marine biology, and then, remarkably young, just 24, she lands what she saw as the absolute dream job. That was at Oceano Mundo, Spain's biggest marine park. And it's there she starts working with Reiko. He was this huge male orca, 5,500 kilograms, hugely intelligent, incredibly powerful, but even back then, known for being, unpredictable.
And their early work together was a real spectacle, wasn't it? It drew huge crowds. The performances, you read about them, they were full of smiles, cheers, just this palpable excitement. Looked seamless from the outside, like a perfect, joyful connection. But yeah, the source says, beneath it all, something dark was brewing.
Right, and this is where the source really shifts the perspective. It pulls back the curtain, moves past that public show to expose the grim realities behind the usual marine park claims about education and inspiration. Take Reiko's story. He wasn't born in the park system. No, he was captured as a calf near Iceland, just torn away from his wild family, his pod. So his entire life in captivity became this cycle, performing tricks, getting food as a reward. And this really highlights a key insight, doesn't it? The very foundation of these shows often rests on this incredibly traumatic separation from the wild. It sort of sets the stage for conflict long before any trainer even gets in the water.
That's a really critical point. And it wasn't just the stress of performing, right? The source talks about his agitated behavior, specifically this habit he had of slamming his head against the concrete walls when he got distressed.
Yeah, that behavior alone gives you this chilling glimpse into his mental state, his turmoil. There's a quote in the piece from a former trainer who put it very bluntly. They said, people don't see the stress these animals are under. Isolation, boredom, and frustration. It builds up. Now, Lucia knew this background. She understood it. But she still held this profound belief in connection. She genuinely thought she could reach him, soothe Reiko. But as the source just tragically notes, she was wrong.
Okay, so understanding Reiko's reality, that underlying stress, what were the warning signs, the red flags, the things that maybe should have sounded alarms but were, tragically missed or ignored?
Well, the signs were definitely escalating. The source makes that clear. In the months right before the incident, Reiko started refusing commands more often. He was seen swimming in these repetitive circles, vocalizing aggressively. And there's one particularly alarming incident the source details. Reiko apparently lunged at a new trainer, missed her by just inches. An anonymous park worker quoted in the piece said very clearly that incident should have been the end of water work, period.
Wow, by inches.
Yeah.
Yet, Lucia's belief in her bond with Reiko, it just didn't waver. It sounds almost stubborn. She kept insisting, he trusts me, he knows me. Which raises this really difficult question about the human element, doesn't it? The power of belief, maybe even denial, when faced with escalating danger.
It really does. And, managers apparently did warn her. But there was also this immense institutional pressure. You know how it goes. The show must go on, and tragically it did. It just highlights this really difficult insight. How those ingrained pressures, the show's demands, and even a trainer's really profound personal connection, how all that can overshadow clear mounting danger signals.
So, the final performance. The scene was set just like any other day, wasn't it? A packed afternoon show. Kids screaming excitedly, cameras flashing, the lights, the music. Reiko enters the pool, powerful, majestic. And then Lucia follows, seconds later.
And initially, the choreography was perfect, executed just as planned. But for those watching really closely, maybe other trainers, experienced staff, something just felt off. Reiko wasn't quite responding normally. His eyes, they say, seemed locked onto Lucia, tracking her. He was hovering unusually close. And his vocalizations, they were subtly off-pitch. Probably barely noticeable to the crowd, but, a huge shift for anyone who knew Reiko well.
And then, as the source puts it, the unthinkable happened.
Yeah, just like that. Everything changed in an instant. He was mid-dive, Reiko was, and he just abruptly veered off course. With terrifying speed, he grabbed Lucia right around the waist, pulled her violently underwater. In the arena, there was confusion at first. Some people actually thought it might be part of the act, but then you hear the gasps spreading, trainers throwing emergency signals, alarms started blaring.
But Reiko didn't respond to the signals. He surfaced, Lucia still clamped in his jaws, then dragged her back under. What followed was just harrowing. 12 minutes of sheer horror described in the source. Each time she managed to surface, she was gasping desperately for air. You could see blood in the water by then. Her arm was snapped. Reiko's teeth were tearing at her wetsuit, at her flesh.
Until finally, her body just went limp.
The show stopped instantly, of course. Families were rushed out. Paramedics tried desperately to revive her right there at the scene, but it was too late. Lucia Delgado was pronounced dead. The injuries listed were just horrific, extensive, multiple blunt force.
This deep dive into Lucia Delgado's story, it really has brought that central tension into such sharp focus, that clash between a human's deep, unwavering belief in connection and trust, and the inherent, untamable wildness of an animal held in captivity. Lucia wasn't naive. The source shows us she was brave. She genuinely believed in love, trust, and this idea of coexistence. But the tragic reality of her story, it's just this stark reminder, isn't it, that nature, when it's caged, can break free with absolutely terrifying consequences. And it really compels us, I think, to question not just the shows we might applaud, but also the silence that so often surrounds the spectacle. What truths are we maybe accepting without really seeing the full picture?